Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 114. Models and Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where I talk about my painting, modeling, and wargame experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 YouTube videos a week. Meow. Could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, Games Workshop has put actually kind of a huge number of miniatures out to pasture. Looking at the Warhammer community article, Warhammer 40,000 and Forge World Legends and Last Chance to Buy. Right at the top though, just to prove that they don't care about Forge World at all, they actually put the Games Workshop things that are going away right at the top. And it is the classic old box knot that nobody really buys because the Venerable Dreadnoughts are just so much better and they almost come with all the options. If the Venerable Dreadnought kit came with the missile launcher, it would just be more of the de facto Dreadnought than it already is. But the classic box knot that's been around since like 4th edition Warhammer is leaving. And along with it, the old squatty Sternguard veterans and the old squatty Terminator squad. And this would make me sad, but actually they've all had pretty faithful and awesome remakes very recently. Hopefully the Sternguard veterans will get a remake besides just coming in the new Leviathan box. The ones that come in the Leviathan box are really, really sweet, but I hope they also get a separate multi-part plastic release. Hopefully they get the same treatment as the Blade Guard veterans because that kit is so good. Even though it's 3 guys that all have the exact same loadout, just Power Sword and Storm Shield, it came with like 12 different options for how exactly you want those guys posed and they all look absolutely phenomenal. And if the Sternguard get the same treatment, I'll just be absolutely over the moon because my Black Templar needs some veterans. I mean, I already have like 15 that would be considered like, actually no, it would be 25, almost 30 like veterans of the chapter. The first company of my Black Templar were actually Codex compliant, which they're not. But the Sternguard veteran going away, and of course the old squatty Terminators are going away. It was always bound to happen because they kept coming out with more and more Terminator squads that were all really, really good. Like the Space Wolf Terminators and the Blood Angels Terminators and the Dark Angels Terminators and the Chaos Terminators. The Chaos Terminators might be the coolest Terminators. I absolutely love those models. But all of those were so much better, cooler, slightly better proportion than the old just squatty Dreadnoughts or the squatty Terminators. And so it's fine. All of these models are being sent to a lovely farm to live out the rest of their days happy and healthy. They're definitely not just getting wiped from the catalog. But I think it's good. The only one that does make me a little bit sad is the Dreadnoughts, because although I really like the Redemptor Dreadnoughts, it's not quite the same. And the old classic box knot had just like 20 years of love applied to it. Dozens and dozens and dozens of different subtle variations, a bunch of different chapter specifically decorated ones. The Furioso and Librarian Dreadnoughts, the Chaplain Dreadnought from Forge World that got discontinued like 6 or 7 years ago that was absolutely beautiful. Like, I'm sure eventually the Redemptor will get the same treatment and you'll see all of these different really cool Redemptor Dreadnoughts. I would love to see somebody do a Furioso Redemptor Dreadnought. That would be really, really cool. I think Games Workshop painted one up for like a community article once, but it was just the vanilla version with like the red X's on the shoulder pads. Like the Redemptor is the classic boring box knot right now. It doesn't have anything particularly special about it. I think it is going to be a smidge difficult to make it super fancy like the old Dreadnought is because it's a little bit less of a blank canvas. It has tons and tons of different small armor pieces that cover it instead of literally just a cardboard box on some stilt legs. But the old box knot, I mean, it did its job. Salute to the old box knot. Let's have a brief moment of silence for all of these fellas. All right, that was long enough. It's fine. I'm completely fine with these models going away. Last Chance to Buy. The Sternguards were pretty cool. They had a little bit more of a Roman feel than I think was strictly necessary because even though they look like perfect for a bunch of the first founding Loyalist chapters, they didn't perfectly fit into everything. I didn't think they looked particularly good as like Black Templar. Definitely not very good as some of the more tactical chapters like the Raptors. So I definitely don't mind the Sternguard veterans getting an update. But then if you scroll a little bit further down, you see the absolute glut of things leaving Forge World. Now, this is the first time we've seen a proper culling of Forge World, every now and then things will just vanish and sometimes reappear and sometimes not. I remember the Necron Tombstalkers have like flip-flop back and forth all the time where they'll just be gone, presumably forever, but then they'll just reappear. And currently they are still available from Forge World, but it looks like all of these kits are actually gone for good. I don't think that this is pointing at any big changes for Forge World, because even though this does look like a lot of miniatures, it's probably less than 2% of the overall catalog. I think they are just getting rid of some of the oldest stuff, some very surprising minis, and some actually fairly modern and popular minis, which I'm a little bit surprised to see go, but let's just go through some of these. One model that actually Games Workshop got me with was the Relic Contemptor Dreadnoughts. I thought that they would keep this one around, like it's the only one that makes sense. They got rid of all of the other Contemptor Dreadnoughts and now you can buy just the torsos. For a short while, you could actually buy from Games Workshop's web store on their Horus Heresy page, you could actually get a plastic Contemptor that came with the Forge World torso, which is fine, I guess. It's a little weird to actually see Forge World being sold on Games Workshop's web store. I think that that's probably where it actually should be because Forge World is garbage. But it was sad to see like the arms and legs go because there was some fun details on those. And the crotches. The crotch armor on every one of the Legion specific dreadnoughts was iconic. I spent so much time staring at their crotches, and now they're gone forever except for the Relic Contemptor Dreadnought, which is now leaving. I actually did purchase one as soon as I saw this article go up because I really like the Contemptor Dreadnought and I don't have any in my collection right now. And so my logic was the plastic Contemptor comes with all sorts of extra arm weapons. And so if I have the Relic Contemptor Dreadnought that just comes with the body and legs and needs arms, and then I have the plastic one, then I'll have two perfect dreadnoughts. One, the plastic one, which is a little on the plain side, and then the Relic Contemptor Dreadnought, which is a little bit more fancy. And now my dreadnought collection, gosh, which is what, 14 dreadnoughts at this point, is gonna be outstanding. But everything else leaving is kind of fine. The Salamander's Venerable Dreadnought, I can't believe they actually still sold. I think they've pretty much made a Venerable Dreadnought for every single chapter, like popular chapter of Space Marines that they make. And they've all been really, really good, but they didn't last long. I kind of wish I bought the Black Templar one back when it was available. Although it left when I was still in high school and I didn't have money for a Forge World Dreadnought in high school. So it passed me by and it came with the coolest banner ever. But yeah, the Venerable Salamander's Dreadnought is gone. Some of the things like the Forge World specific chapters, the Minotaurs and the Red Scorpions are leaving. It's fine. It's fine. There are some people out there who have collected the Forge World chapters of Space Marines, and they are really, really cool. And you get to go down this interesting rabbit hole of like a very specific niche within a niche. But they are leaving. The Blood Ravens Gabriel Angelos from the Dawn of War games. I wonder if maybe they didn't like show this model up off enough because people adore Dawn of War, and this is the guy from the box. But he's just been kind of tucked away in a corner of Forge World for years and years and years. And so finally they're axing him from the catalog. The only thing that really surprised me was the Inquisitors. Games Workshop makes a few Inquisitors, but they make one really. They make an Inquisitor in power armor. And so I guess that replaces Inquisitor Locke and Retinue. His Retinue is pretty cool. And the Inquisitor Lord Rex and Retinue, he looks a little bit weird. He's in Terminator armor and he's posed, I guess, as well as they could pose Terminator armor back in the day. It's a little surprising to see those guys go because now Forge World is going to have absolutely nothing in like the Imperial Agents category. So I guess they're just axing that. And it was nice to have some more options in there. One thing that was a little bit poopy was even before this article went live, all of the greater demons were already sold out. So I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a tricky thing in terms of scheduling because you can't control how fast things sell. And so it was a bummer to see this page go live, but the greater demons, which we're talking about the greater demons, some of like the most iconic classic things that Games Workshop has ever made. These kits have been around forever. And they're actually leaving. And it makes perfect sense that they're leaving because they've all been replaced by plastic kits. But I'm so surprised, like Old World is about to come out, and these models are definitely more geared for the old style of Warhammer than the more modern style. But it's really, really weird to see these models that I've seen for my entire wargaming career vanish into the ether, into the warp. The other thing that was a little surprising was the Hellblade and the Hell Talon fighters for the Chaos Space Marines. I don't see them pop up all the time on Instagram or Facebook, but I do see them from time to time, and it's kind of cool. They're like an in-between stage of the Helldrake, where like these Imperial planes are slowly succumbing to chaos warp shenanigans. And so they're really, really cool kits, and I'm surprised to see them go. But I want to take a close, deep dive on the Greater Demons, because I've never really given them a proper look. I'm not much of a Chaos player. I always kind of gravitate towards the good guys, even though the Black Templar are like the absolute worst possible good guys imaginable. But all of these Greater Demons have since seen plastic reincarnations, and so I just want to do a little comparison between the two, because there's some really, really interesting things for, looking at models that were designed like early 2010s versus models that have been designed within like the last 5 years. Some of them are even older than that. First, let's look at the Bloodthirster. The Bloodthirster does look very old. Oh, who's the guy from Lord of the Rings? The Balrog. It's definitely got some Balrog vibes in there. His wings look thick, which actually I think is kind of good. If he's supposed to be this big buff guy, he should have some wings with a little bit of girth. And they're not girth like the new Angron model, where they're like kind of tyranidy or fleshy. They just look like they're thick. Like probably what like dinosaur pterodactyl wings actually look like. I think he looks really, really good. And one thing kind of that goes along with all of these old Greater Demons is that their clothing actually makes a little bit more sense. It's not just kind of jewelry or embellishments on their skin, but like he actually had somebody make him some armor to wear. I like this guy a lot. He definitely does look old, but I think he looks the part of a Greater Demon. And I also like that it all makes perfect sense. Like he does look like an organism, like all of these muscles and his wings with like the big bat thumb, all of it makes a lot of sense. I can't imagine anybody who owns this kit actually has those tiny little whips intact, just the thinnest little bit of resin. And I'm sure every single one of those blades is a fail point where like a bubble appears in the resin and makes it extra fragile. But the old Bloodthirster, pretty good. Not $300 good, but pretty good. Looking at the Games Workshop Bloodthirster, it's fine. I do like the kind of shredded, tattered wings, but the pose he's doing, this kind of weird pirouette on top of fire, just doesn't look particularly strong. Like the old Bloodthirster, his feet are planted on the ground. Where this guy, he's just doing a little hop, he's just doing a little skip, and it doesn't look as intimidating. Everything about him is probably just as good. It's kind of really just the same exact miniature reimagined by a different artist. Also, I can't imagine that hammer on the end of a whip is also not a piece that breaks constantly. In fact, I know some people who have this kit and that it always snaps at the little wispy fires on the bottom. It's just kind of a bad idea to have this massive chunk of plastic balanced on these little tiny wispy flames. It's fine. And you can pose him without the fire where he's a little bit closer to the ground, and that looks a little bit better. Overall, I think that the new model is better than the old Forge World one, but it's close. It's actually really, really close. And speaking of really, really close, the Lord of Change. This model is perfect. The Greater Demon of Tzeentch. This guy is a bird man. And I think it's the clothing that he's wearing that really kind of sells the bird man aesthetic. I love his weird, scaly, leathery skin. This bird face that he's got, his hand reaching up into the air with like pink and blue horrors bursting out of it, twisting in a weird vortex of flesh and mouths and tongues. I love his staff that just seems to have a snake wrapped around it, but there's no head to the snake. Like I just like to think it's like an infinite Bora Bora snake tail that's just endlessly slithering around the staff for no particular reason. The kind of softness of his bird wings. This model is absolutely top-notch perfection. Way better than the Bloodthirster. This is such a cool miniature. And the problem is the new one is also really cool. It's just two different takes on like the same reference design. It's almost like those Fiverr videos where like you give a bunch of different artists the same prompt and then you get back what you get back, and they're all the same idea but slightly different. The new plastic one is also really good. It feels a little bit less bird man and a little bit more bird dragon. And the way that they painted it, I think you lose a little bit of the details of his sword and staff. It kind of blends a little bit too much into his body, but that's easily fixed with painting. I might like these wings a little bit more. It's hard to say. It's kind of like they're bird wings, and then as they reach up into the air, they kind of turn a little bit more magical. And I do like the little brimstones running around his feet and the three eyes. I don't know. I think the eyes actually are one thing on these plastic versions, where the old ones were hand sculpted, and I think the old ones were sculpted with like a little bit more thought process on the face and how like the face actually has like an expression and some character, where a lot of the plastic ones actually have more like beady animalistic eyes, which I'll definitely have more to say about that with the Nurgle one. But I do like this model a lot. I think it is like a faithful rendition of the concept, and it does look really good. I do wish he was wearing just robes like the old one. I think that added a really interesting look to him and made him feel very different. Because like I almost feel like if you painted the new plastic one red, you could kind of get it into that Khorne universe, which is kind of surprising because Tzeentch and Khorne absolutely despise each other. But I do like the new plastic one a lot. I don't know how I feel about the wings having these little Tyranidy thumb claws. Kind of like they thought maybe they should add a little bit of like a bat-like feature to it. It's fine. I might just shave those off to get it a little bit more bird-like. But overall, the new model is really good. I don't know if it perfectly replaces the old one though. The old one feels very Tzeentch. Although I guess the new one will look a lot better surrounded by the newer plastic kits for Tzeentch from Games Workshop. Now we get into the one that might get us demonetized. This model is weird. This model is very different from the new reimagining. And it's not a bad model, but it does seem a little scattered. I think Games Workshop has never had a perfectly nailed down idea of what Slaanesh is, the god of excess. And this model works. I think it's decent. I do like the kind of weird BDSM gear and the weapons. Two of the arms are kind of the classic crab claws, and then two of the hands are just regular hands for holding things. They kind of got Freddy Krueger claws. It has the Kerrigan flesh dreadlocks from StarCraft, and the face, I do like the head a lot. I don't know if I love everything else about it. It's very odd, and I don't know if it gets the point across of exactly what Slaanesh is, because like Demonettes would look excellent surrounding this model, but Noise Marines wouldn't. Like Noise Marines are like excess of volume and noise and color, where the Demonettes are like the excess of like lust. And it's hard because everything also sort of fits into excess, like excess violence is Khorne, excess like gluttony is Nurgle, excess shenanigans is Tzeentch. And so it's hard to like let them all have that, and then what's left for Slaanesh. It is a really hard thing to nail down, and I think it shows in the plastic reimagining of this figure. The plastic Keeper of Secrets is much more like demure and actually kind of feminine, where the old one is more of like a deranged Barbie. Like this model, they've kind of started to nail down an actual style for part of Slaanesh, where you've kind of got this elegance and grace to it. I don't know if it screams excess, but it definitely actually looks a lot better, and you can kind of nail down the actual vibe they're going with. This model would look really good next to a lot of the Age of Sigmar Slaanesh stuff, which also looks absolutely phenomenal. Although I don't think that Demonettes would look really good around the new Keeper of Secrets. Although I do think our Demonettes would look really good. We here at EonsOfBattle made a set of count as demonettes, and you can find them on comics, games, and things. I think this model is a good direction for Slaanesh to go. It is an actual style, and it feels very, very separate from the other 3 Chaos Gods. I think that the plastic one is a big step up from the old one, which was fun, but it was a little bit kind of all over the place, where this is actually a really, really nice, interesting style. And that brings us to the Great Unclean One, the Greater Demon of Nurgle. And this is probably one of the most iconic models Games Workshop has ever made. The big, disgusting Buddha. It's so great. It's so awful and disgusting. I love his sword and his big, toothy grin. His face has so much character. These big, hooded eyes with these just tons and tons of folds. His double chin, his kind of horns that are disintegrating. It's so beautifully done. This miniature, you see it and everything about it is so clear and precise and nasty looking. I really, really like the old just resin bowling ball that was the Great Unclean One from Forge World. Everything about it to me is absolutely perfect. And it's kind of hard to compare it to the new one because they are very similar. I think if you painted the new plastic one exactly like the old Forge World one was, it would just be the same exact guy. The only big difference is the face. The new face is a little bit more jolly, and the beady little eyes don't give much character. I do like the kind of small pinched face, but it doesn't feel as human. Like the old one could have, because these greater demons, I guess the greater demons are literal manifestations of the warp. They're not actually like a possessed person that has grown into these things. But the old one did feel a little bit more human, where the new one with this little button of a head coming out of the middle of his chest, it just doesn't feel as human. I guess the pareidolia that is in all of our brains that tries to find humans and things, it feels a little bit more alien, and so I don't relate to it the same way I related to the old miniature. But really, that's the only flaw of the new one, is the face. I just don't like the new face as much as I like the old face. Although the saving grace of the new one is it comes with the King of the Nurglings, this little Nurgling champion with a cape and a sword. It's probably the best. Let's just be honest. It's the greatest miniature that Games Workshop has ever made. It beats the crab. It beats Belrog or Be'lakor. It's the greatest miniature that mankind has ever seen. The little champion Nurgling. All those miniatures will be lost in time, like tears in rain, to use a movie quote because I wanted to. But it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad to see them go and to see them replaced with the new plastics, which are very good. I do like the new Keeper of Secrets much more than the old one. But other than that, it's pretty darn close. It's kind of just personal preference. They're very, very similar miniatures. But the plastic ones are what we've got, and the Forge World ones are the ones that are leaving. And no one even got a chance to say goodbye because they were gone from the web store before this article went live, proclaiming that they are officially gone for good. There's a few more things leaving the range, some of them actually really surprising. The Tyranid Dimacurion is leaving, which is kind of surprising because it was kind of a rock star in 9th edition. Like, it was a really popular Forge World unit that was very powerful and good. And so it's weird. I wonder if it's getting rolled into the Tyranids properly, and which is kind of fine because I never loved the model. He looks very, very weeny and unbalanced because his claws are like the same size as his torso. And then he's got this tiny little wasp waist that doesn't look like it could actually support his huge bulk. But yeah, the Dimacurion is kind of surprising to see it go. The Necron pylon, the Necron construct before the Necron aesthetic had actually been nailed down, but it did still fit. It was clearly a ripoff of H.R. Giger Alien, the engineer, or the guy who's sitting in the big chair that they find at the beginning of the movie with his chest burst open. But it's sad. That's a little bit sad to see go. The Night Shroud Bomber is also kind of an interesting one. It's not that old. I want to say that it debuted in like 2015 or 16. And I've always sort of had my eye on it because I play Necrons, but I do enjoy the Tomb Stalkers a lot, and I don't really love flyers in war games. So that model can go. It's also very clearly the plastic kit with some add-ons. Like, they did a good job. It looks slick. It looks really, really nice, but it is just the plastic kit with some resin slapped on top of it. The Orc War Boss on bike. That's a classic. I think he used to be called Wazdaka, and he was actually named Orc, and then they kind of dropped that and they just called him War Boss on bike. But it's a really, really nice model. I have one. Absolutely phenomenal. The Orc Super Cannon, I forgot it existed, so I won't be shedding any tears for that miniature. Also, easiest thing in the universe to kit bash. I mean, even if you just don't want to grab a Basilisk tank from the Imperial Guard, just get like 2 Expo markers and glue them together and paint them orky. And then the last of the Stomp-A-Bits are leaving. Weirdly, at the very end of this article, it just shows off some models that have previously left. I don't know why they would do this, just to be like, haha, you didn't get them. Because they're gone. They were gone before this article went live. I think some of these actually have been gone for a while, like the Landspeeder Tempest. But yeah, the Landspeeder Tempest, probably the best looking of the old Landspeeders. Although I do like the Landspeeder Storm. I think they do look much better when they're actually covered in the Scouts. I've never liked the Landspeeders. I have a video fixing up my Landspeeders, and I got them as good as I can get them to look, but they've always just kind of looked like flying shoes. The Tempest was probably the best one because it actually had a closed canopy, but other than that, to Landspeeders. The Stonecrusher Carnifex. I do really like the Stonecrusher Carnifex. It's probably my favorite Carnifex. I've seen some pretty cool like kit bashes and conversions for old One Eye. But other than that, the Stonecrusher Carnifex with those monstrous crab claws. Not only are they crab claws, but they're like hydraulic press claws because they're triple claws. Like they've got 3 points, 3 digits on the claw. It's a really, really slick, cool model. But that is definitely one that I'm a little sad to see vanish, even though I was never gonna buy it. It's just a nice thing to look at. And so now I'll just have to remember the name and Google it so that I can look at some cool mini or not posts. But that'll do it for all of the things leaving Forge World. Kind of a big page full of some classic minis that I've been staring at for a decade. But I don't think this really means any big changes are in store for Forge World. There's still thousands of miniatures on there. So it's just, they're gone. Just a few more kits are gone to be replaced with newer stuff, probably purely for Horus Heresy and Necromunda. Because it doesn't seem like Forge World is doing much for 40k anymore, but maybe that's fine, because Games Workshop does come out with 40k Marines, mostly Space Marines, but 40k minis every week or two. So I think that 40k is being more than serviced by Games Workshop proper. And also, I don't want to pay Forge World prices or deal with Forge World resin. So if I don't have to buy any more Forge World ever again, which I don't have to buy anything ever, but if I don't ever have to deal with Forge World resin ever again, I would be very, very fine with that. But you know what I absolutely never get tired of dealing with? That's right, our Patreon. Over there, we have a new terrain set every single month. This month, we have the Orc Brewery, the unofficial sequel to Octeris, complete with new Orky wall sections and a goth rocker stage. We also make one extra episode of Eons of Battle every single week where we take a look at our viewers' miniatures and gives us some ideas and critiques of how to improve their painting. We host live Discord hangouts, and we have a tier where you can get your name on one of my Black Templar Space Marines and you can join the crusade. It was really interesting to take a look at those greater demons and compare and contrast them to the plastic ones. I was doing that for hours and hours and hours, just kind of getting every single one of those details drilled into my brain and then comparing them to the plastic one. And it actually kind of made me want to do like some of my own sketches of how I would imagine these things to look, because you can actually find some of the original concept arts, like the Jess Goodwin drawings of the greater demons, and those are really what everything is based on, which is weird because neither the Forge World or the plastic or anything that Games Workshop ever made really look that much like the old artworks. It's just a vibe. I guess they're trying to get that vibe across. I guess you could say that they didn't pass the vibe check, and that's why they're leaving Forge World. Thanks for watching.